I've gotten my notification that we are live. What would 2023 be?
Glad you did.
What would 2023 be if we didn't just take a moment here to chitty-chat a little bit? Huh? Crazy.
I mean, look at where we've come from. We've come from hell to the gates of heaven. We're not in heaven yet, but we're at the gates again. From where we were, I mean, come on, guys. It's been ridiculous, man. Like what we just went through for 5 years to now kind of return to normalcy. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what it is. It just feels like there's common sense again. And, you know, I mean, it's unbelievable, Anthony, really, when you see, like, how quick things turned. And it's, you know, so I implore anybody, like, and I always tell people, like, before, like, you know what, you never know what you're going to get in life because, you know, you just do the right thing. Do the right thing, and good things will come to you. That's why I look at it. Maybe that's my Christmas spiel right now. Are we live? We're just bantering right now.
We are. We're just having a little chat here before we really dive into the year that was. It's just, you know, there's a...
I mean, again, like
there's been a lot. There's been a lot. We have so many things to talk about the team, obviously, and this show. This makes me laugh. Hunter bringing up the Intern Andrew poem that has taken off. You know, I think a lot of people saw it live, but for those who didn't, you know, it just the man became an instant classic. You know, you
didn't listen to us either, right? Now he's basking in the glory right now too. Like I know he is.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like at first he was like this. He was like the grumpy elf, and then he kind of like was like all of a sudden he saw people going in, and he grew like a flower in front of us.
Yes, he blossomed. He was initially very cranky, and then we said like get in the elf costume.
Dude, he looked like Gangsta. He's like, oh, hush, I can't believe I'm doing this.
He didn't want to, and then he kind of manned up
a
little bit.
He embraced it.
And it went really well. You know? And good
on him. He rocked it. Yeah. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
It's very good stuff.
So Canada beat the Finns this morning 5-2. And then the USA team is playing right now, I guess. Yeah. For
can I tell you something? Can I admit something here? Can I admit something?
Is it going to be something that we're going to be held liable for?
No.
Okay,
but I think I'm going to be certainly in the minority in this room for sure.
Oh, geez.
And that includes
He's about to poo-poo
all of our fans and listeners and
the whole tournament.
No, I never liked the World Junior Championship. I never thought it was that big of a deal. I think it's overblown. I think guys get, even in the league, I think guys get too much good pub or bad pub based on a 4, 5, 6 game tournament, and that's it. And I just think it's something that I don't know. There's so much hockey that's played around the world, and it just drives me crazy that we make a big deal over teenagers playing a sport against each other and put way too much pressure on them.
We've lost 9 people on the stream, by the way, since you started talking. 9.
What do you want me to say? I mean, I'm being honest.
I would rather you not say that. I would rather that the people. Oh, there we go. Since I told you to shut up, we gained 10 people.
I think Bundy's sitting there kind of nodding a little bit, like, yeah, you're probably right. I mean, I get it. You know, it's one of those things where you know, we're not supposed to poo-poo teenagers playing in a tournament, but gee, why are we making such a big deal out of it?
Let me ask you this question. We haven't started the show officially, right?
We haven't yet. No,
we haven't.
So Anthony, let me. I'm going to add to that a little bit. Just say this while we're talking. If Cutter Gauthier dominates last year's World Juniors, is he at Boston College again this year?
That's my point. Like
you know what? He did not have a great tournament against good players, and you know what? That's all they talked about after the tournament last year, right? So he's like, well, I'm going to go back to Boston College. And I said it too. Like, I thought he needed another year. But if he goes in that tournament last year and absolutely manhandles it, he's in the NHL right now.
Probably.
It's just true. It's just totally true. So yeah, I mean it's good. It's good hockey, but again, you shouldn't make or break a prospect's like young career by how he performs in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think look, I'm not trying to say don't have the tournament. I'm not trying to say don't watch it. I mean, certainly there's value to it. I think it's blown out of proportion and mostly by Canada more than anybody else. I mean, Canada makes it like it's life or death. Yeah. And I think that everybody else kind of just, sends their teams over there and says, hey, let's go try and win this thing. But at the same time, let's pump the brakes a little bit. It's teenagers playing hockey. I mean, it's what it is. It's like why don't people get really excited to go to minor league baseball, or Division II football? Like sometimes, it's like
whoa,
it's like, why
D2 football, Westchester Golden Rams,
right? It's like because it's a lot of the talent. I mean, yes, it's the best players at that age. That's great, and they may end up becoming star players in the NHL. That's awesome, but let's let them just be kids. There's just too much pressure put on them. It really is. I mean, in a lot of ways, this reminds me of Little League World Series, and same thing. I mean, it's like way too much pressure put on kids with the television coverage and everything. I'm like, just let them play, just let it be. If they win, that's great. The scouts should go watch it and scout them and whatever, but we turn it into something far bigger than it needs to be. Anyway,
I'm glad this isn't going to make it into the podcast feed. Yeah,
usually
I am. I'm ready. We have so much to get into today, and a big thank you to everybody who's joining us for our year in review. It's going to be a good one. I think it's going to be a good one because when we go back and we take a look at where things were a year ago, or roughly a year ago, to where they are now, I think you're going to see why we've maybe changed our tune a little bit and why we're open to be heard again. So with that, let's hit that intro. Let's blow everyone's eardrums out, and then we'll get started with our year in review. Oh, yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Snow the Goalie, the only Flyers podcast, the People's Podcast, Players Podcast, Prognosticators Podcast, PLI Podcast, the only Flyers podcast. I'm Russ Joy, Joy on Broad. In the middle is Bundy at Therien 6, and on the right, looking like he's still running on that dial-up Delco internet, Anthony SanFilippo on Twitter, at AntSanPhilly. Gentlemen, the year 2023 has been a doozy. We're here to break it all down, review it. Oh my, how far we've come. How are you guys doing today?
Anthony, you start today, bud.
Well, I'm doing great. I don't know what you're talking about. I think everything seems like it's coming through fine to me. I knew when my internet was down. Yeah, I knew when it was bad.
You had the camera covered in the garlic parm or whatever. What was it? The garlic butter that guy said the last stream. It did look like that for a little bit, but now you're back.
I don't know what was going on that day, but that was everything's good. Was that the storm? Was that the day of the storm? Anyway,
I don't know.
I'm doing good. This is like you're so excited about this episode, Russ. You're more excited about this than maybe anyone, because this is totally your wheelhouse. You are Mr. Play the Hits. Go back and let's review everything and get it out there and let's say all the good stuff all over and over and over and over again. And I'm like, yeah, great. There is something new that I want to get to though, but hopefully we'll have.
All right, fine. Let's do something new. Do you want to do something new? Is it really important that we're going to blow up our evergreen 2023 review show with something that's going to almost undoubtedly no longer be relevant in the next 5 or 6 days as people listen to this, or as they go back weeks or months from now? Is it going to still be relevant?
We won't talk about the fact that there's a report out there that Mattvei Michkov might take 5 years to come over instead of 3. Well, let's skip over it. Go ahead. Let's do the year in review.
There he is. Just pooing all. Nope. Go ahead, Anthony. Derailed the show. Mattvei Michkov, 5 years. Here we are trying to talk about the positive things that have happened in 2023.
Is that relevant?
I don't know. Not for this show. Not for what we're doing today, but sure, go ahead.
We shouldn't talk about it, I guess. We'll wait. We'll
No,
wait
go
till
ahead.
January.
Go ahead. It came out. Technically, it came out. The news came out in 2023. Go ahead.
Yes, it did. It came out yesterday on Christmas Day. There was a post locally, and it was on Philly Hockey Now, but it came from an agent in Russia who went on Russian television to say that the agents have been told by the president of Russia to keep young players playing hockey in Russia longer, with the goal being somewhere in the 4 to 5 year range. And I think people are starting to freak out about it. I've gotten messages about it. I got a message about it as like minutes after the story posted yesterday. And then I've been getting DMs and I got somebody who actually put a comment out on Snow, I think they tagged you guys as well in Snow The Goalie account and on Twitter. And so like people are worried about this. And here's what I'm going to say. It's a Russian agent on Russian television telling you that the Russian president wants the Russian players to play in Russia longer. It's nothing, guys. There's no mandate. There's no rule that they have to stay longer. There's no extended contracts here. Everything is the same as it was yesterday or 2 days ago because this report came out yesterday. All right? He's fine. He has a 5-year deal, but this is 2 years in. He's 3 years. He has 3 years on the contract. That's it. He's able to come over here. Nothing's going to change. Everything's fine. So, anyway, I just thought it was worth putting that out there and talking about. Otherwise, when would we get to it, Russell?
Probably on the morning after, at some point here between now and the.
Strong! You are very strong, Anthony.
I mean, come on, man. It's
Russ
like,
doesn't know what
and
movie
we
it
go
is.
nuts over this. We go nuts over this stuff. It goes crazy. Like, oh, some Russian agent on Russian television said something.
Okay.
And by the way, Bundy, we got to talk about boxing. We got to talk about boxing.
There's a lot of Russians that talk a lot of stuff, but I can't imagine what they talk more of than a Russian sports agent on Russian propagandized television talking about the future of their young hockey program. Great stuff. I used to remember the days. Whatever happened to the good old 80s? Remember where some player would defect in a bathroom at an airport? Like, let's bring that back. And then everybody would celebrate him for 2 years for having the courage to get out of the hellhole he was living in. Come on over here. Come bring your hockey talents. I played with Peter Nedved for Team Canada. He wasn't even a Canadian. He defected, became a Canadian. And we actually had him in. I played with him on the Flyers, and he defected in like a toilet at the Calgary airport and hit during the World Juniors one year. And that was it. And then everything kind of changed in the world. But I think Michkov wants over here so bad too. Like, it's part of the player, so it's going to come down to that.
Yep.
I don't think it really matters what Russian President Putin has to say about the future of their hockey. Otherwise, Alexander Ovechkin would be back playing in that KHL right now if he really cared.
Yeah.
Bingo. Okay. So, Bundy, we are recording this, of course.
I do on Boxing Day. Yeah, I was going to ask Bundy about this. Go ahead. You can do it. Go ahead. You want to talk?
I was just about to say it is Boxing Day, and a lot of Americans still don't know what Boxing Day is, or they have a very limited knowledge. And so I wanted to see if you could give some people, because there was a question here by David Waitman, if you have any fond memories of Boxing Day. Can you please, first of all, dispel the notion that Boxing Day is a day about boxing?
From what I heard, Russ, it's a British thing that transcended into Canada because they were once part of the, whatever they did there with their stuff, their whatever they call it, their tributes.
They were once under the rule of the Queen and
International Relations 101 with Bundy.
Canada never bowed to anybody. Well, until about 7 years ago. But anyway.
Oh boy. Hey-oh.
No, listen, seriously. I think it was to pack up the Christmas stuff and the decorations was what it was. But ironically, it it's a national holiday too in Canada. Like it's as big a holiday as Christmas because it's a full day off again. So people are off. Boxing, I would assume it's boxing all your stuff up again and throwing it back in to do it back into the attic or the basement till next year. But most people don't. I remember it was January 6th is technically like the Christian time for taking your tree down. It's apparently the last day of doing it.
Right.
And but I don't know. Unless someone has a different thing, I just never paid attention to it. It was just another day off to go out and throw snowballs at someone.
No,
but it
that
actually
is
turned
it.
into
Although in
another
the UK, I was gonna say in the UK they kind of made it into like another Black Friday. A lot of deals.
Yeah, it turned into another big shopping day.
Yeah.
You know, we
So, Bundy,
always
do
thought
you have any good memories of Boxing Day? Because I can't imagine that Aunt and I do.
No, I don't have any at all. I mean, because you're still doing this stuff from Christmas, so I don't really. It just was it was an extra holiday. It was like 3 days: the Eve, Christmas Day, and Boxing Day. But I don't have any. Frank, thanks, Frank. It does not have anything to do with boxing. Nothing to do. But I'm guessing it's the boxing of all the stuff getting put back in, and I'm sure we could Google it. I didn't. But I tell you what, I want to talk about a Canada scam that they've had running for a while. And I want people up there. I want to use this actually for people to help me do this.
Go ahead.
Canada, this is because I know we have a lot of Canadian listeners. The biggest joke that I think I've ever seen in Canada is the winter tires. You've never seen 30 million people race to the Canadian Tire or the tire places to change from summer tires to winter tires. And I've been sitting here watching for years and they're so happy to get there. Like, oh, we're getting our winter tires put on today. It's going to be amazing. And then the spring comes and they take these winter tires off and they put the spring tires in. But they don't just throw them out. They put them back in their garage. This has been going on forever since cars were invented. And I would like someone to please answer me what the fuck kind of racket this is that they have actually made people put 2 sets of tires on their cars. Because I've never heard of anything in it in my life. I've heard of things called all-season tires or radial tires, but I've never heard of, you got to get 2 fucking sets of tires because that's the law. Can somebody please answer this for me and end the dispute? Because it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. If you get some winter tires, why wouldn't the winter tires be good enough for summer? You guys have no idea. I see Anthony and Russ laughing because you don't know what's going on. It is a disgrace what they do up there. And you should see the Canadians are all like at the door like, hey, I'm here to get my winter tires. Oh, you're going to have to wait 3 hours. No problem. It's the most important thing I have to do right now.
Are you ready, Russ? You know,
That's
I'm going
all
to take you back a little bit.
I mean, this has been on my mind. I asked my group of friends that I'm on a 5 of us in a day. I'm like, can someone please explain it? Because there's people, we got to get the winter tires on. It's so important. All right, I'm done. If anybody could ask me or fill me in on it. Look, I even put it down. It was a thing I had. Look at it says winter tires.
There you go.
Winter tires. I need it. And then you know what I found out? Let me finish. If you don't have winter tires in Quebec, you get fined $200.
Yes.
That
actually does make me suspicious of winter tires.
That's because it's a racket.
That's horseshit.
And you know what? Look at this guy right here. It's called, where's my friend here?
Which one?
It was someone put down, it's called someone said they work.
Wisniewski.
This one.
Yeah, he said they work, or something. Great, they work. But they also have all-season tires. So no one else makes anybody buy 2 sets of tires. Yeah, there it is. Make a huge difference. But don't all season. Okay, I got totally off, but I wanted to check with my Canadian. My friend said the same thing. He's like, winter tires work, man. My buddy at home said, I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
You know what they used to do back here? And I don't know, maybe they did it in Canada too. They used to put the chains on the tires for the
Yes.
Way back when, right?
Yes. So this may come as a surprise to you, Bundy, but I am not the son. What? Go ahead.
Look at this. It's a law. That's all. That's it. That's the answer right there. Okay.
So, this may surprise you. I am not the son of 2 college-educated parents. My dad was a mechanic And so I can tell you with full certainty that there is actually some benefit to winter tires. Now, I don't want to be accused of being part of Big Rubber or Big Tire, okay? So I will tell you that I am not about to get paid a commission for any future sales of tires, okay? But a big part of it is the treading on the tire, and it's also the compound. It's the rubber compound that's in the winter tire. So summer and all season harden up as the weather gets colder, whereas the winter tire, those compounds allow for it to stay softer and allow for it to get better traction. And to Ant's point, the chains thing was real. In fact, like growing up, my dad built this like kind of like a small loader to plow our driveway and everything. And we used to put these gigantic chains on the back, massive back tires. It was pretty great. So it is a thing. I think that for the most part, unless you live somewhere where it is absolutely critical that you have them, you don't need them. If you're in an area that gets 6 to 10 inches of snow consistently, then it's worth having. But if you're just somebody who like lives in a place where there's like 2 inches of snow, and Anthony screwed up which one he had on screen. He just went black. Now we have double Anthony. Jesus God, Anthony. Bane of my existence.
I'm here.
Yeah, that mic sounds awful. Whatever you just did, you just made everything 10 times worse. You just made it worse.
I did not.
Anyway,
I did not.
You did. It doesn't sound as good. And it's a lot louder, too. So, Bundy, big tire might be a real thing.
Jay Money answered. Oh, we might have had the answer here. Okay.
Well, I just said that they're softer. The compounds allow them to stay soft.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just found out, too, Jay is actually a hired consultant for Michelin.
There you go.
That's not
very
true.
Sad. It might be. I don't know. Perhaps. Andrew's very good here, though. Apparent Russ knows nothing about rubbers. That's true. Not a big rubber guy. Yep. All right. So anyway, now that we've had winter tires that we've gotten to chat about.
Okay. Thank you for your answers.
Now that we have all the Donald, I'm tap dancing for the lucrative big tire sponsorship. I will tell you what, if Goodyear or Michelin wants to sponsor us in the new year, by all means, we will work with them and we will sing the praises of the winter tire.
So Russ, we're now 22 minutes into this thing, and
Bundy, is he really loud to you? Is his like audio twice as loud as it was before?
No,
it sounds good to me.
It's very loud.
Okay, we're 22 minutes into this thing, and we've not done one iota of the year in review. Mm-hmm. Have we completely sabotaged your show yet?
No.
We didn't have to design this. We're going to see how long we can go without saying a word about hockey.
No, because this is the beauty. This is the beauty of things. I can cut all this out if I want. It doesn't have to exist to the public record anymore. But for now, for the people who are joining us live, they can enjoy it. But I can kill it if I want. But I won't. I won't. Because it's still good talk. Okay. I do want to look back on where we came from this year, because we have had a few people. It's funny, when you go back and you look at the history of this show and about how critical we've been about the Philadelphia Flyers over the years, we were always told that we were unnecessarily negative, that we had an agenda, that we hated everybody, we hated everything. Bundy was a bitter Comcast employee because he got fired by Comcast, which wasn't true. Or Anthony's still pissed off that they killed his and what was that show that you did, the video series with the Flyers? What was it called?
Flight Plan.
Flight Plan. He's so pissed that they got rid of his flight plan. And Russ is just a little egotistical asshole. One of those three things is true. I will tell you one is true. One truth and two lies. But then over the course of the year, we have kind of changed a bit. And we have not become corporate shills. We have not become sellouts. We have sat back and said the entire time, Bundy, what's the thing that you always like to come back and say? We tell the truth.
Yes. And but again, I don't think there's enough of that, but we have done that. And I promise, like people said, like what is if there's one thing we've learned this year, it's that bullshitting people gets you nowhere. Mm-hmm. And you're better off presenting it in a way. But I really do think that a lot of I don't think we did it in terms of the fans were asking us to, but I think a lot of the fans mimicked what we were saying, and I think they had an understanding of it. If we're starting, guys, on January 1st of 2023, and we're taking till the end of the year, I mean, as we said, it's been leaps and bounds different. And there's been probably a lot of things behind the scenes that people didn't really know that went on. But I tell you what, in terms of where this, so I'll just say it quickly, so I'm not going to go 3 minutes. The return to culture has been the most evident thing that we've seen this year. The building's been fun again. People are starting to come back. The team's work ethic is back. The coach has been great this year. Like, I can't say negatives. I don't necessarily like the process all the time, but there's been so many good positives. The fans are into the games again. The goaltending's been excellent. The press box, the balcony area has been great. And a lot of that was simply because they placed two former Flyers that had an understanding of what the fan base was dying for again. So they were able to do that. That's been, to me, the easy part. And I think that we three were the ones that probably screamed the loudest from the rooftops, because I couldn't sit around and watch what somebody had built and watch it just get absolutely rendered irredeemable. I mean, that's what it looked like. This franchise deserved far better than that, and the fans did too. So when I joined this podcast, it came on with good intentions. I just wanted to keep talking hockey while my other life was changing and I went into the recovery field. So this gave me an amazing platform. But what I've seen is truly positives. You know, it looks like we've gotten, going back even to last year, we got a good pick with Cutter Gauthier. We got another really good one on this regime with Mattvei Michkov. That, you know, will provide a lot of goal scoring. So there's been a lot of good things. The future on the horizon is so much brighter than what it appeared to be 2 or 3 years ago. Now, I will tell people for where they're at, the excitement that lies right there in the arena, the presumptive, you know, future that this team has, the hard work that the players have put in on the ice, and all those good things. This is probably a 1-year window for that, because you're not going to be able to reduplicate this again next year. It's just too hard with the same messaging with the coach when you quite frankly, lack the skill that it takes to move, you know, deep into a playoff format in the spring. So I think the real job, the hard part of the job is finding those players to put in, because yeah, it's great being in the building. The atmosphere is back. But what the real work that Jonesy and Danny have to do is to take their vision and put players in place that are going to work. And so until we get to that point, I love what's going on, but that's really where the future lies, is in the talent evaluation from those guys and the people around them. And I'll end it right here. For what we loved about Flyers hockey and the things that were taken from us for the 4 or 5 years previous to that, it's been probably one of the best feelings of my pro sports life to see a normalcy and adults in the room again, running the Philadelphia Flyers the way that Ed Snyder would have wanted it run. People say, you know, I hate when they say, Ed Snyder ran it like this. And that's what worked for 50 years while he was the head of this team, and people loved it. So I look at something and I say, I don't know, what it was here the last few years, but what has worked here has been the culture and the brand of the Philadelphia Flyers in the Philadelphia public. And that's what we've had a return to this year. And that's what has truly made me excited. We will continue to critique the team when necessary. We'll continue to be honest, and we'll continue to have fun. But in terms of where they're at, I'm looking forward to the future. This is a step in the right direction this year, but it's certainly not at the end phase of where they're looking forward to what happens next.
So where this team was, just to give people an idea, to kind of jump back in the Wayback Machine, when the calendar flipped into 2023, this team was 13, 17, and 7. Okay. We always like to talk about the fact that, like, if you don't win, it's a loss. Yes, you get a point, but realistically, the team was 13 and 24. And to recap, and not to during your post-traumatic Fletcher disorder, which many of you probably still have and feel the effects of, and hopefully we've been therapy to help get you through that, your PTFD. This was a team, at least the start of 2023, start of the 22-23 season, that we were told was going to be a playoff team and just needed to get a few guys back healthy. And it was around this time, around the 26th, maybe it was a little bit earlier, and you might remember the date specifically, but that's when Chuck Fletcher had a press conference where he said, we expect to get back Sean Couturier and Cam Atkinson, and we think that they can take this to the next level. And we sat here exactly a year ago, and we said, that's just not going to happen. And in fact, and if I remember, around this time last year, you said that Couturier would at best be back by February. And yet the fans were kind of gaslit at this point last year to, hey, it's still a playoff team. Ignore the fact that we're this far under 500. There are good things to come. And we went into the new year saying there are a lot of legitimate issues here. Is my timeline right there?
Nah, you're close.
Okay.
Close enough.
I'll take close.
You're close enough. I think you're conflating a couple of press conferences together into one, but that's okay.
That's okay.
That's okay. I mean, you're right.
We're not here for the truth.
No, I mean, and that's where it was.
It was like the 18th and the 23rd. There were two separate things.
There was two separate things.
There was we're a playoff team, and then there was another one.
Yeah, I think my reporting at that point was that Coots was not going to be back at all for the year, even if there was like only a very slim possibility that he would play at the end of the season. And I was never under the impression that he was going to play as long as they were out of it. So, I mean, just think about where they were less than a year ago, where they were. And they are, and compare that to where they are now. And really, what's different when you think about it? You changed leadership. You changed a handful of players in the locker room, and that's it. I mean, what else is different? I mean, so that's what it's. When you look at it and you put it all together, the very beginnings, and I think Bundy can probably address this better than even I can. The very beginnings of being a good team has to start with the way you approach the day in, day out operation as a player, as coaches, as management, everybody. Like how the operation, how the machine is oiled and greased and kept operating on a daily basis. Not even just the games, but every day. How you arrive, what your schedule and structure is on a daily basis, how you practice, how you work in the video room, what conversations are taking place off the ice, how the team is always trying to mold itself into a unit that believes in itself and that buys into the standard and the culture, the words that the Flyers like to use all the time. But it's the truth. You can't start being a good team unless that foundation is in place. We make all of these references to, building a home and the like, and I remember Torts at his presser last year said that this team is at the footers, right? So it hadn't even started laying the foundation, right? You hear those things and it's like, oh, okay, well, what is he talking about? Well, this is what he's talking about. This is the foundation that's being laid this season. Okay. And it was put in place once the change happened at the beginning of in March of last year. That's when it really, really began. But then after that, all you had was a few, handful of player changes, and you got rid of some big names and you didn't bring in any big names. So think about that for a second. You got rid of Kevin Hayes, big contract. Yeah. Ivan Provarov, big contract. Tony DeAngelo, not necessarily a big contract, but this is a significant one. They all go, and the people that are replacing them are not anywhere close to that kind of contract. So it's not like you went big name player for big name player, but you put together a group of guys who want to play together, like each other, and play as a team, and that's where this all starts.
Yeah, I was actually going to get to. They trimmed a lot of fat out of this organization with the players that they dumped. I wasn't around the room, but I'd heard enough to know that I knew too much at that time. When you trim a lot of that stuff out of the locker room and you get rid of that dead weight and guys that are just not willing to do what you need to do, think that are bigger and better than the program you got going on, they have to go, especially if they're not that important to what you're trying to do. Like if you look and say, oh, like, can we not win a Stanley Cup without one of these guys? No, that was never the case. So I think that became part of it. I think Torts in a lot of ways did a lot of examination on those players over the course of last year. And I think that was huge, Anthony. You're totally right. I just think, and it wasn't just 3 guys that we moved out. It was 3 guys that people thought were really important, but they weren't. They just were not guys that were going to help you in the future. Maybe I think a lot. I mean, when we go back to the you can play game, the stripes and all that, I think that showed a lot. Like even when you look at like what happened in a game like that, like with Provarov, if you can't just be there for your teammate for 15 minutes, then what kind of a teammate are you? Obviously, there's guys in that room that's more important to at the time, but I felt like there was a lot of that at the time that just did not resonate well with players. I know there's fans like, oh, he can do whatever he wants, and I agree. I agree with that, but it just didn't sit with the flow of the team at that time. And I think looking for something to get on the same page with was important, and it just never happened. And all it did really was just add to the crap that the team was going through anyway through the year, and it didn't help. It was like a cherry on the top.
It amplified publicly.
Yeah,
what was wrong in the locker room, the fracturing of the locker room. That's what it amplified. I think I told the story on Snow The Goalie back when it happened, but I can't. I'm driving. I was in the car on the way to the game that night, and my phone starts blowing up from people. It had not even broken publicly yet that this was happening, but from people within the organization who just could not believe what was going on, who were telling me, "You're not going to believe what's going to happen tonight." Provarov, he's not going to wear the jersey, and they're fighting in the locker room, and this and that. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, this is happening now. I'm in the car. I'm on I-95 driving to the game, and this is blowing up in the locker room. And multiple people are texting me about it, and I knew we were in for a total shit show at that point. I knew. I called Russ. I called him right away. I'm like, you're not going to believe what's happening. And Russ wasn't even. This was before Russ was even coming to the games. Russ was just sitting at home, and I called him from the car, like, you're not going to believe what's going to happen tonight. And
yeah. But the thing about it though, Ant, was like it wasn't surprising. And again, I don't want to relitigate this. Like if a player doesn't want to do something, they don't have to do it. This is the beauty of living in a country like the US versus perhaps one that might try to make their players stay for 5 years domestically. Is that like you have the right to do what you want. If it upsets people, you have to be ready to take that on the chin. If you're an organization though, I do think that you're owed it by the player to at least fully articulate where you stand on it so that you can make the necessary preparations, I guess, so that you don't have a public backlash. And when you go back to it, because I think it got misconstrued when we did that episode.
Can I give you an example of something that happened years ago?
Go ahead.
So I know this story for fact. Jake Voracek several years ago said, I'm not fucking wearing this shirt. I'm not fucking doing it, before he gets all uppity and everything. And I'm not doing it. I can do what I want. So somebody went up and said, hey, listen, there's somebody in the locker room that this is really important to. Jake said, I did not know that. I'm putting the jersey on. That's how you show you're a good fucking teammate, that you care about the guy next to you, and that sometimes the greater good, which is a team, is bigger than you, the selfish individual. Yes, you have a right to do whatever the fuck you want in this country. That's your right. But how hard is it, in the spirit of team, in the spirit of supporting a teammate, how hard is it to put the tape on or a jersey in that moment and just go off the ice? I don't want to hear this religion shit. Like, I mean, you can blame it on that, and I'm religious, but don't come out at the moment and say that. Like when you've had issues to do it before.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. If that had actually
I don't want to. He leaned on. He leaned on a crutch there, and it was garbage. You could have done something for your teammate in that moment.
This, I think, was actually part of a bigger issue that they just had as an organization at the time, though, because everybody knew that Provarov did not see eye to eye with Lawton on this, right? Because Lawton, every game that we've been at this season, he has hosted LGBTQ community people in seats or a box or something. And it's been every game. They've made that announcement. They've shown the people on screen. So this is clearly...
and not only that, they go down and meet him in the locker room after the game. I mean,
so
usually that conversation's happening when I'm doing my press row show interview from the locker room after the game. They're literally 10 feet from me having a little conversation with Scott Lawton in every game.
This has always clearly been something that's been really important to Scott Lawton, right? And Provarov was not that way. And I think we all knew that. But the cognitive dissonance in all of this was the people who were high up at the time, Fletcher Mort, just didn't think that this was ever going to like rear its ugly head. And all you had to do, and this comes back to like, again, I don't really care where you're at on any of this. The simple thing to do would have been to say, hey, if the team agrees that they're going to do this thing, and we have this one guy who very clearly is not, then we're going to scratch him for the game. We're just going to scratch him. He's still going to get paid. We're going to scratch him. And whether you think that's a gutless move by an organization to make or not, well, that ultimately is the one that allows you to avoid the sham and the insanity that happened, because this was just one of many things that sent this organization down a very, very brutal spiral for the next 2 months.
Well, you know what else they could have done to be in a better position to handle this problem?
What's that?
They could have told the business side that this was happening.
Yeah.
The people who were responsible for the public response to the backlash of what was happening had no idea it was coming. Mm-hmm. And apparently they knew, the Fletcher and his group knew for a week, at least a week, that this was going to happen, this was happening. Okay. But they never told anybody. So that's where you talk about the dysfunction from within came out publicly. Okay.
Yes. That's what we're trying to tell everybody. Yes.
That's what it is. So in other words, these things happen in business all the time. We all know this. This is not a surprise that there's always some kind of negative shit happening at work, right? Who doesn't get along with who, or the company's making a bad decision doing this or whatever. And that stuff happens constantly. We don't really pay attention to that in sports enough. We happened to be people who were willing to shine a light on it when it happened. So I think that was beneficial for us on Snow the Goalie. But the fact of the matter is that this didn't need Snow the Goalie to shine the light on it. They shone the light on it themselves. They turned the spotlight on themselves. They put it on and said, look at us. We are a complete frigging mess. Look at us. They did it to themselves. They didn't need us to expose them on it. So that's what I'm trying to tell you, is that was the biggest problem with all this, is it showed the absolute dysfunction that the organization had in its own walls, and everyone got to see it on display. And the fact that was less than a year ago and they are where they are now is fascinating to me, that they made such a 180. It really is fascinating.
Well, so I let me fly through this really quick, because this is how crazy the start of the year was, okay? Because this was, like I said, this was kind of like one thing that kind of like lit the flint or whatever, right? Like this was what was about to light the big bonfire that eventually led to revolution and upheaval. And I just looked. It was December 1st last year that you wrote the story about Tortorella and Fletcher and how they had press conferences on the same
press
day.
Conferences,
And they said practically totally different things.
Correct.
And that was the first real sign that you went, oh boy, it's not just the Snow the Goalie guys have an agenda. There actually might be something wrong here. Surprise, surprise. So they went from that to, I think it was a few weeks later, Fletcher had like a clarification press conference where he kind of said, we're still a playoff team, yada, yada. And then it was like 2 weeks later is when the Provarov thing happened. And then like another 2 weeks or so after that, 3 weeks after that, Fletcher had another press conference. It was at the end of February. And I believe that's where he finally said something to the effect of, maybe things aren't going to turn around the way that we hoped they would. Perhaps now that we are, because at that point, and let me just look at the record really quick. That was February 28th of this year. The Flyers at that point were 23, 28, and 10. And then a week after that, Chuck Fletcher got booed off the stage, on the stage, around the stage, at a season ticket holder event at Xfinity Live. And that was, I think, the thing that finally really pushed this over the line. It was one thing to see that there was discord between the coach and the president of hockey ops at the time. It was another to have the Pride Night thing blow up the way that it did. It was another for the president of hockey ops at the time to continue to say, it's a playoff team. We just need to get a few of these guys back healthy. But when he got booed on the stage at the season ticket holder event, and Steve Coates at the time, good old Coatesy, is up there, and he said something to the effect of, "Oh, don't boo, we're better than that." That, I think, was the moment, Ant, where we started getting a lot of texts. We were getting messages, we were getting videos, we were getting audio from people who were season ticket holders, who were fed up, who were saying, like, this is getting really ugly in the building. And I think that's when the text really started coming through, Ant, of there's going to be a change made. I don't know, and I think that there was a
Did
text
Kobe do that in English that night?
Yeah. Well, it was kind of. And so that, I think, was the night where the text started coming through of, I don't know how this continues. I don't know how the organization could continue to make the choice to keep him here in this role, given how bad this is. Like, and by the way, this wasn't just like a local thing. This was all over like hockey Reddit, not Flyers Reddit, hockey Reddit. It was all over international hockey news. It was not just here. It was national outlets, both U.S., Canada, and abroad. Like, it was an ultimate black eye on the organization. It was a full condemnation by the fan base and a final, like, true fuck you to the people at the top at the time that, like, you've gaslit us for years and have provided us an underwhelming product and absolutely no hope for the future. And like that was about the time, right? I believe that's when things really started rolling.
Well, it was the whole weekend. You're missing. There was a whole slew of things that happened in succession in this. Not just a weekend. It was like 5 days, and it started actually with the debacle with the Rangers fans.
Oh, that's right. They took over the building. You're right.
That's what started the whole thing, and that was just like, oh man, do we look bad? And then that led into.
Was that the Black Friday game, Anthony?
No. It was
March. There was one that was even worse.
If you remember, Bundy, that was the game where the Rangers fans were all in the Wells Fargo Center. It was on national television, and then the local feeds were not. A lot of people couldn't get the game, and so they were blaming the Flyers. It had nothing to do with in all honesty, it had nothing to do with the Flyers. It had more to do with, I think it was it TNT.
It was, but it was the March 1st game.
Yeah,
it was an overtime loss.
Yes, that game started the whole thing,
and that was the day before Fletcher came out on the stage.
Right, Fletcher had the season ticket holder event. Then you had the trade deadline that went awry, and he said, "I couldn't." Nobody wanted JVR. That whole disaster. Then there was something else that weekend, and it was a sobering JVR.
Couldn't trade JVR. Yeah, the JVR thing not working out was a big thing.
Couldn't give him away.
Oh no, it was when he came out and he said, because people were asking, like, why did you not just make like a fringe deal? Like, there have to be players that you could have moved for something, and that's where he came out with the line that the analytics department had put together an app, like they'd put together a little program that gave the value of the player, and they were really proud of it, and they were very excited about being able to assess a value through this model of what kind of draft compensation each player was worth. And he said that straight face. I think it was actually at the town hall he got booed at, where he said that as if that was supposed to like absolve him of the sins and was supposed to get the fans to go like, oh shit, this whole time we thought he was a fucking incompetent Muppet. But in fact, he's built this program. We're in great shape for the future.
Yeah. So what happened was, and I just went back and looked up what I wrote. So the day before the Rangers game, Fletcher speaks for the first time in 3 months and says that rebuilding, although he didn't use the actual word, was the plan all along. And and that one that they've been pretty clear about all year. Mm-hmm. That was what started it. And then you had the Rangers game. Then you had that's when Cuz was on 97.5 screaming for Comcast to sell the team. And
I know.
then you had the trade deadline. Then there was the town hall. And then you had just everybody was going nuts, ripping the Flyers and the organization and Comcast and that whole thing. And then they fired him.
There was this too. There was that line at one point.
Well, that was December. That goes back.
You're right. That's right. The fifth most improved team was back at the December press conference. There we go. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway,
it was funny though.
He gaslit more than any other GM I've ever seen. Like I've never seen a guy lie to fans more than that dude. It was fucking breathtaking.
Yeah.
It's just breathtaking. And I mean, I think he was a Harvard trained lawyer, but I mean, it was unbelievable. I'd sit there like watching this shit and I'm like, this is fucking for real. Like unbelievable to watch that. I mean, it was, you talk about the like eras in history of sports. My God. Well, people unfortunately will never forget that. That made the early 90s look like a beach vacation in the Caribbean. And that was a rough era of Flyers hockey, before Eric came in and a lot of the good years came. But I'll tell you what, man, that was rough. And Anthony, that's a good call by you talking about the that 5-day span right there. But there were so many missteps, and then I think it was probably around that time, based on the interviews that we had with Dan Hilferty at the end of the summer, that might have been the time frame that Dave Roberts had looked at him at a meeting and said, "Hey, is there any you'd maybe like to do with this?" And I think that's when the wheels started to go in motion. But
that same story that I wrote, I'm looking at it here because I was talking about what was next, and I had written, Dave Scott, I'm told, will be given the opportunity to step away from this mess gracefully, likely looking at retiring sometime at the end of the season. Actually happened a little bit sooner. And then and if Scott chooses to walk off into the sunset, who would then oversee the Flyers hockey operations? Cue Dan Hilferty's walk-up music. So, I mean, we were there. We had this all back then talking about it. But they knew. You're right. It's exactly what Dan told us when Brian Roberts called him. Like, they had to fix it because it was in such disarray and it was such a mess. And it's been – I did not think that they could turn it around as quickly as they turn it around. And I'm not talking about just on the ice because there's still a lot to be seen what's going to happen on the ice. But I did not think that they could turn around the relationship with the city as quickly as they did. And now Jonesy was on with us the other last home game, right, Russ? And he said they still have more work to do in that front. And I think what he means by that, even though we're seeing good crowds, right? Big crowds down there at the Wells Fargo Center, and everybody's into the Flyers right now. They're kind of an interesting team, and the excitement is growing around them. I think what he means by that is they're still giving away a lot of tickets. They're still getting people to come in the building for free. And when he says we still have work to do, the work that the organization has to do is get people to be excited enough to buy the tickets themselves and not have to just have handouts to come see hockey. And I think that's the next step. The point is they figured out ways to get people into the building, and kudos on them to do that, right? People are interested enough to go, oh, we got free tickets. Like last year, if you offered somebody free tickets to the Flyers, they weren't coming. They were like, forget it. We ain't going to go. But this year you're offering them free tickets. They're like, I'm going to go check this team out. I hear a lot of good things about them. So like that part is working. But what he means by we still have work to do on that front, is we have to get people to want to spend their money here on their own without us giving away tickets to them. That's the next step for them to take.
I talked to somebody in the market recently who I would say is important for one of the media mediums in the city, who would have like very, very intimate knowledge of the way that people are perceiving teams and the willingness to go to games, who said the exact same thing, that his company had, say, however many seats, box seats, and that last year actively offering a box to people, to potential clients, to potential whatever, that nobody wanted to go, period. And I want to say this really quickly, because you guys know how I am, that I'm Mr. Crossover guy. Image matters. The sound matters. The optics matter. It doesn't matter how you get those people through the turnstiles. It matters that they're there. Because that's what ultimately creates the excitement. Here's my awful crossover for the day. When you have a mostly empty arena It doesn't matter how you light it. It doesn't matter how you mic it. It is clear that it is not a full arena. It used to happen with the WWE for a long time. They were piping in a lot of crowd noise, and they got a really bad reputation for it. And then the product got hot, and they started filling out these big arenas again. And AEW, their main competitor, had these like smaller venues that they were filling out, and people were like, all you would talk about is, oh my God, like you have to go. It's like going to a concert. It's this crazy atmosphere. And over the last year, they've made a bunch of mistakes. And what you see now is these giant arenas, like a Madison Square Garden-esque kind of thing, not that one specifically, but like you see these 20,000 seat arenas that they're selling tickets to, but they only have 6,000 people in attendance. And you can tell. It doesn't matter how you light it, and it doesn't matter how you black out different sections. You can tell that's not a full arena. It's not close. And that actively hurts their product. So if you're a team and you're playing in an arena like, say, what Arizona is, where it's an embarrassment, it's like a 3,000-seat college arena. If you're filling that out, it's still an embarrassment that you're playing in a college arena, but you can make that into an atmosphere. When you have a big building like Wells Fargo Center, and for the last few years, you had maybe 10,000, maybe, on a given night that were there, and they were so spread out that it felt like significantly less, there's no way to make that look like a full arena. And when you don't have that excitement jumping in your face when you're watching on TV and the product is bad, you have no reason or motivation to put your good hard-earned money out to then say, let's go down and spend however many hundreds of dollars it's going to take the kids, or to go with your spouse or your significant other, to go down there, pay for parking, do the food, like the works. You have no reason to do it. Whether it's because they're doing handouts now, Ant, whatever it is, you watch these games and you listen to them on TV, and it gives you the feeling that Flyers hockey is back. And whether half the people paid for tickets, a quarter of the people paid, 3/4 paid, nobody gives a shit when you're watching it on TV. All you know is you say, the team is good, they play hard, that crowd sounds great, I want to be part of that. And that, I think, is what has allowed them to turn this thing around perception-wise so much faster, is because it now feels like a thing that you want to attend. It's becoming a must-attend sports event in the city again, where it hasn't been that for a really long time. Bundy, you would understand this better than us, but when you're a player and you go into a building and there's 10,000 people versus going out and playing in front of a packed house or damn near close to it, I have to imagine you can feel that as a player.
I mean, yeah, and because of some of the great players that I played with here, LeClaire, Lindros, I was afforded a full house every night. And, those are probably the glory years of Flyer ticket sales, 95 through probably 2015. They probably had a great 20-year run. But that's why it's important to stay on top. I think it's important that there's people. What happened was, really, when you go back to it and just kind of assessing not just a year in review, but the post Ed Snyder passing, it was just unbelievable. I mean, the greatest misstep of it all was that they didn't have the right people to continue carrying the message. He had Dave Scott and Valerie, who knew nothing about hockey, the franchise, the history, the importance it meant to the fans. So I really felt like it took years before people started talking about this, people close to the organization starting to whistle about it. And that's where the change was made. But that, again, guys, there's a lot of things that went on this year. I don't think we'll ever have a year in review that is as detailed and poignant as this, from the political bullshit that went on with the if you can play night to a lot of the other stuff, the cracks, the bullshit through the media that we were told. Again, without getting negative, I just think there's a lot of things that have been so good. And we, a lot of the players, I just read like a guy like the name like Wade Allison, the guys that have taken steps, Sanheim, Provarov gone, he stepped up. Sean Walker, we didn't know who he was. Risto had a very good year last year, in terms of taking a step. And then guys up front, it's been a mixed bag at times, but the other part, Couturier without the team without Couturier, the team with Couturier, how they look this year. It's been a lot of positives, but I'm just telling people that if you think this is continued will be your core, you have to think again. And I'm going to keep beating the hammer on that because this is not a team that's yet prepared to win. And Jonesy, when he says that to Anthony and you guys, like, we have a lot of work to do. Yeah, it's building the fan base back. That's a paid fan base that want to come down to that building once or twice a week. And that's super important. That's where the bread is buttered. So I think they're doing a lot of the good things. Just implore people. I don't want this to be the Devils of last year. You know, they made a huge stride and then they fallen back down to earth because Lindy Russ' message may have been just one of those 1 year, hey, let's fire everybody up and let's get them going. You know, Jack Hughes is taking a step forward. I don't want that. I want this to be sustainable. I'm not saying the Devils won't be, but even the Islanders, when you look at the New York Islanders a few years ago, they got the 2 conference finals. I just never felt, though, like those Islander teams were going to win the Stanley Cup. Even if they got there, they just didn't have enough. They were a couple players light. So that's why it's important. If you're going to do this and do it right, go all the way in, you know, the Flyers. Make the moves, make the bold moves when the time is right to give yourself a chance, and then lock the core in for a few years together and let it run. But you got to be right, and that's the thing. You know, there's a lot of people over the years that you say, oh, they'll be great hockey people, and I sure hope Danny and Jonesy are. I know them pretty well. I have a good belief in them. But there's a lot of guys in other teams, you know, that got the wrong core together. Look at a guy like Brendan Shanahan in Toronto. Yeah, he had a GM in there. He let him run for years. They had high-profile talent, about 4 of them. But there's no sustainable model. You know, I don't know how much runway a guy gets like that, but Toronto, to me, is great if you want to go watch a couple pieces of high-end talent. But if you're thinking that that's going to get to the 3rd or 4th round of the playoffs, I wish you all the best. So that's why it's not about having an in-the-moment team where you have like really exciting, couple of exciting players that's going to keep people coming to the building. It's what are you going to do to keep people coming to the building because you have a really good team. And that's when I used to hear Bob Clark say, you know, we don't trade players to win a Stanley Cup. You trade players and make acquisitions to make your team better. And that is, I've never understood it more than I do probably over the last 5 or 7, 10 years. You can't get players to win the Stanley Cup, but you get players to make your team better and grow together. And I think that's what's going to have to be so key for Danny and Jonesy. I said last week, you know, like we may lose 8 players off this team to what they consider upgrades. That's why I'm saying don't fall too far in love with anybody here because I still think there's a lot of changes coming and even ones that you may not see. This is a process. It's going to be a long process. It could be 2 or 3 years, but I think the one thing is they're ahead of the curve. But I also want people to realize they're ahead of the curve now. But if you took the same team next year, there's no guarantee that it would be in the same spot it's in right now. And that's what I tell people just to be very, very cautious of and aware of. You know, be careful what your expectations, because if you're satisfied in the moment right now, you're not going to have the same celebration and the same thought of this team in April, May, and June because it just won't be there. And so that's why I tell you to have the patience.
And the danger, Bundy, really is more so than just that. It's that, you know, whatever this team ends up being this year, it ends up being. But even if they let's say they just missed the playoffs and they're on the outside looking in, and okay, they made a nice step, made a nice run, but miss out, and now you go into next season. We can't have fans raising the expectations next season either. Like next season, you got to have it be the same as this season. Okay, maybe, you know, all right, look, maybe you want to see them go, you know, the next step and qualify for the playoffs. Okay, maybe. But the fact of the matter is, even if they don't and they just miss again, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're in this vicious cycle of being a bubble team. It's just part of what a rebuild looks like, right? I mean, that's really what it is. You want them to be competitive. But I mean, and even if they make the playoffs this year, that doesn't necessarily mean that next year's expectation should be a little bit higher, right? I mean, it just means that good. They're expediting the rebuild a little bit faster, but it's still not there. They still have things to do. You're still looking at 3 years out is really what is the target here. So I think that, and Trevor Harris says it really nicely, the expectation, can the expectation just be that they're watchable? Yes, that's what the expectation should be. That's what the expectation should be right now. And that's what they are. And that's good. And that's a good thing. And it's to consider that they are a watchable, entertaining, fun hockey team, regardless of if they're a playoff team or not. in December of 2023, when in April of 2023 or March of 2023 they were an absolute mess.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty darn good. That to me, that is an expedited rebuild. To be that much more watchable and likable in 9 months after as far down the hole they were 9 months ago.
I just want to clarify this right here too, Bundy. If 8 Flyers, I'm not saying 8 Flyers are gone next year. I'm saying there's 8 players on this team, and maybe more. Could be 10, 8, 10, or 12 that will not be here when this team is capable of winning 2 rounds. That's what I mean. Yeah. I'm not saying. Yeah, I'm certainly. I would like to clarify that they are not going to get rid of 8 guys over the summer. They may, but just watch. Take a look at the roster. Right. Take a look at the roster.
Maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah, and then take a look at 2 years or 3 years from now.
Yeah,
and you tell me how many of these players are here. So, and I'll most likely be correct in and around that number. But that's also turnover, upgrades, youthful upgrades. There's a lot of different things. Anthony, I don't know if we did it in the pregame or not, or as we were doing the banner before we started. Could you please just explain again really quickly the Michkov situation, just very quickly?
I see.
We've seen a lot of stuff. People may have missed that.
Yeah, and I'll say go back and listen to the beginning of the show, but real fast, I wouldn't put anything into that report. Again, it is a Russian agent on a Russian television show talking about what the president of Russia wants his young players to be. It has nothing to do. There's no mandate. There's no requirement. It is what it is. It's just propaganda BS right now. Could there be political pawns used at some point in some way, in some capacity? I mean, we saw it with Fedotov, right? Certainly could, but I don't think that you're looking at star players being used in that way, because it's better for Russia for star players to play in the NHL than it is for them to play in the KHL.
Wait, are you telling me that the IIHF's ruling that Fedotov had violated international that suspension didn't hold? That nobody took the IIHF seriously? What? That also happened in 2023.
Yes, it did.
Let's not forget that the Fedotov thing is a huge part of 2023. The fact that the guy went missing. There was the video that came out of him being ushered into an unmarked van and then being gone.
Sent to Siberia.
And then the agent coming out saying that he hadn't spoken to his client, that his client fell sick. There were all kinds of things that came out about that. And then at some point it was, he has to go do his mandatory military service. A few months removed from the Flyers inking him to a deal to come over for this season. So there was that. That also happened. Also this season and this year, the Flyers reinforced the goalie position in a way that I don't think we have ever seen this team try to load up on goalies. Not only do they have Carter Hart under contract, but they also have Sam Ersson. They kept Felix Sandstrom at the NHL level to start the season. They added, Anthony, you and I always go back and forth on this guy's name. It starts with a K. I think I always say Kolosov and you say Kozlov.
No, it's
one
Kolosov.
or the other. It's Kolosov. I always say Kozlov. Yeah. I think of like Cosmo. They have Kolosov. Him. They picked up Cal Peterson from the Kings. They picked up a few guys in the draft. They have tried to fortify that position. For the first time ever, the Flyers actually have almost, maybe you could make the argument, an abundance of riches at the goalie position. And we've talked about this in recent weeks. But the Flyers, to some extent, you could make the argument right now, based on how they've played, they have 2 number 1 goalies right now.
She's been traumatized.
Susan Lowe, for those who are listening in the podcast feed after the fact, says, I have been traumatized from the past from the goalie situation. I'm now starting to recover with Hart and Ersson. Please don't take them away. I can't go through it again. But like two legitimate number 1s. If they were to continue this way through the entire season, 2 legitimate number 1s. And I think it's big enough that it's not just a small sample size. They have both played very, very well this season. I was throwing that to you, Ant, but no. Okay.
Oh, you didn't say Ant.
Well, no, I kind of thought that you like to jump in, but they've been fantastic.
Both goalies have been really good, and I even give Carter a little bit of a pass on the game in Detroit because other than the 6th goal, I didn't think that the other 5 goals he allowed in the game were on him. I really don't. I think that only the 6th one was really his fault. And look at wait a second. I got to stop right here.
What?
Intern Andrew is on the show right now, or he's watching the show right now.
What is he doing?
He's updating us on Team USA and World Juniors.
Intern Andrew. What a stud.
Intern Andrew. Way to go.
Intern Andrew, clip the goal. Clip the goal, and we'll put it on the Snow the Goalie thing. See, I'm going to start giving Intern Andrew social media responsibilities now.
1-0 USA halfway through the game against Norway.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
They're playing great. This is going to be this is a again.
Again? What's again?
No, it's like Miracle when they played. Wasn't that Norway that they were playing in that game when they tied in the pre-Olympics, and he makes them skate after the game?
Yeah.
It was against Norway. Herb Brooks, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I was thinking of. A 1-0 game against Norway. Oh boy. So
That's something. Certainly something. Guys, is there anything else that you can think of from this year that you want to dive into here? That you are, I guess, if we go into the season itself, the big storyline probably was
I'll throw one at you.
Go ahead.
I'll throw one at you. There was a time at the end of last season where, and we even talked about it on the show, and I wonder, I wonder what people's thoughts are now. There was a lot of criticism of John Tortorella for not coaching at the end of the season, and instead going and sitting with Danny Briere up in the GM's box for, was it 3 games? I think it was at the end of the season.
To end the season.
And whether there was the people who thought, well, that's Torts is running the team and Danny's just a puppet, or whatever. Look, John Tortorella, whether you like him or don't like him, is doing a hell of a job coaching this team right now. And I'm not certain that anybody thought that would be the case when he was doing that back in April. I know we sat here and said, what the hell are you doing up there, Torts? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, you can't have those conversations with Danny separately. But you know what? Maybe that's what was needed to get rid of the people that they needed to get rid of, to show the kind of culture that needs to be put together for this team. And looking back on it, because that's not something that happens all the time, right? That the coach decides, I'm not going to coach these games. Although I guess he gets credit for the win and the loss, right? I mean, that goes on his record, even though he's not behind the bench. Kind of weird. So that goes on his records. I know he just moved into the top 10 or he's tied for the 10th now in all-time wins in the NHL. Like, he wasn't behind the bench for those games. Anyway, point being, what do we think about that now when we look back at it and says maybe that there was something more beneficial out of him doing that than there was that seemed at the time seemingly kind of, I'm better than everybody, and why does John Tortorella get to do this when nobody else does this? Like, who does he think he is, kind of thing?
I think he should have been behind the bench, to be honest with you. He could have had those conversations elsewhere. That's my opinion. And
that's fair. And that's fair.
Other NHL coaches going, if it was anybody but Torts, they'd never do that. So again, I'm about structure and the way things are going. And if he's thinking, oh, my team's so shitty, I'm going to go talk to the GM up here during the game, you could have done that on the plane after. And so I know you're one way on it. I usually agree, Ant. I totally disagree.
I'm not even saying that I'm away on it. Because at the time I was like, I'm not 100% sure on this. This is kind of different. I wasn't killing the guy at the time, but I also wasn't supporting of it. And now I don't even know how to think about it. Like, I mean, does one have any kind of tie into the other? Like, does the fact that they were able to make the changes that they've made to get the team to be more structured and more, playing for each other in the way they are now, did him doing that with Danny have any impact on that? Like, these,
because I think he honestly he could have sat on the plane after and said, hey, get rid of these 3 guys and I'll give you a chance of winning more games next year.
Okay.
Possible.
It's fair. No, I just said it was one other thing to talk about that happened in 2023 that it was a kind of part of a crazy situation in hockey that you just don't see, and it all surrounded the Flyers.
And then I take a look at all of this happened, and at the same time, you and and we all kind of sat together and we said, all right, where things were last year with how bad they were, we still wanted to build our show. And as you and I know from way back when we first started this, the only time that you can really grow your show is one of two things. The team either has to be really, really bad or quite good, because when everybody's kind of lost in the muck and the mire of mediocrity, there are people who still tune in and who still check things out. And like we talk to other people who do similar shows with other Philly teams, but like you kind of need things to go one way or the other. Either you become therapy or you become like part of the rah-rah. And when we sat back and we said, all right, what are we going to do this year? And how are we going to kind of jettison this thing to another level in 2023? What are you smiling about?
Andrew did exactly what you asked him. It's on Twitter.
Did he really?
Yeah, the goal's on Twitter. He cut it and put it on Twitter.
On his Twitter?
He tagged you.
Intern Andrew. Oh my God, I got
He tagged you.
Intern Andrew, I love you so much, but for God's sake, you should put on the Snow the Goalie. Okay.
He doesn't have access to the Snow the Goalie account.
I'm gonna give him access to the Snow the Goalie account.
Intern
Andrew.
He tagged
Intern
Snow the
Andrew
Goalie.
is going to. He's an absolute beaut. What a delight, that guy. Okay, I've calmed down. My moment.
If you want to put it up, it's on.
Intern Andrew is. I didn't know he's capable of doing this. Why is he not doing these clips? Okay, this is gonna be a post game. This is gonna be a post show thing with Intern Andrew. We're gonna have a chat. Apparently, they just went up 2-0, which is great. Again, not evergreen here, but here we are. When we talked about the show, Ant, we fielded offers, and you and I did a very in-depth thing about this on the YouTube channel. It's also on the podcast channel about some offers that were made to us this year. I think we had one day that was probably one of the craziest that we had of the entire year. We went and we recorded the interview with Dan Hilferty, which the team requested at the time. You have to remember, for the people out there, we were persona non grata, or whatever the hell the plural of that is. Personae non gratae.
Personae. A-E is pronounced I in Latin.
Okay. We were those. We were those people. And when we heard from the team that Dan Hilferty would like to have a chat, we thought, all right, like we'll do this. But again, we're not state propaganda. So like there might be some uncomfortable questions in there where we talked about the Sixers and the arena and the relationship. And we actually broke some news there that then another outlet that's a more legacy outlet tried to run with like a week and a half later, 2 weeks later, as being like the first time he had spoken about it publicly. It's fine, whatever. We did that. And then the same day we fielded a call about buying Snow the Goalie, the Only Flyers podcast. Bitch, you can't buy Snow the Goalie, the Only Flyers podcast. Ain't happening. And then a month or two later, we had the chat about partnering with the team. Yeah. And we were initially, I think, worried that we would have some of our longtime listeners who would say, oh no, these guys, to Bundy's point, have always told the truth. Are they going to be able to tell the truth if they are working with the team? And again, when the conversation came up, we said, we are not selling the team or the show. And I think the team even said at the time, they didn't want to buy the show. They wanted to just empower us to kind of do what we do on a better scale, on a bigger scale. And I can tell people definitively that now that we're 2 months into this, 3 months into partnering with the team, we have not, to this point, God's honest truth, for 3 months, have not had a single time where somebody from the organization has come up to me, or I believe either of you, and said, you guys can't talk about that, or you guys can't say that, or you guys need to delete that from a podcast, or these are things that you are not allowed to talk about with a guest. When Hilferty came on at the Jonesy event, when Jonesy came on and Danny Briere came on, well, that's another thing. But when Danny and Jonesy both came on for the pregame on Press Row show, when Fridge comes on, when he came on with Bundy and I postgame the one day, when Brad Marsh came on, like we have not been given talking points. We have not been given things that say you're not allowed to broach this. We've never had, and full disclosure, we've never had a moment where somebody said to us, don't ask about the Carter Hart situation with Hockey Canada with any of these people. It's never happened. We've never been dictated to. And that, honestly, I think is maybe the most refreshing thing to come out of this entire year. We started this year being absolutely despised by many of the people who were at the top of the organization at the start of 2023. And here we sit at the end of 2023, and I think we are in a better position where we have better access to people who matter with this team and have gained an even larger following through all social platforms and through the podcast feed to be able to do what we do and to give people better coverage than I think we ever could have envisioned, especially given how this year started. Bundy, I want to throw this to you really quick. Have you had anybody dictate to you what you, Bundy, are allowed to say on Snow the Goalie?
I never have. As a matter of fact, I was at the game last week, and we got to remember I played with Jonesy, and I think he was here a couple of years. He played with, and again, we're good friends. But he came up to me last week on the press box. He's going through, and he said, "Hey, Bundy, thanks for what you guys do. It's been a huge help." And I really think that's kind of the message they want. I think in a lot of places, guys, I don't understand it, but I think that the more honest you are with people, in no matter who they are, you get better results from it. I think social media has probably brought that out, but I think people appreciate it. It's refreshing for the fans. Dan Hilford, he said, you know what? When a fan boos the team on the ice, that's their way of expressing it. And we have to have people that have balanced views of the team. Now, I will say this. We talk very well about this team, too, because they've deserved it. There's been a lot of great efforts this year by a lot of people. I like Torts. I've never want to say I loved him, but I've learned to really like the things that he's done this year. Now, I don't know what that translates next year, but this is the best way to be, because we do praise the team. We've done a lot of that this year, but also be accountable when guys have had rough nights. I know what it's like to be a player, and I know what it's like to be ripped in a paper or publicly. And I don't do it because we're just talking about the games, but essentially you're a hot topic. Anyone on the ice becomes someone that can be praised or can be evaluated every night after a game. And that's what we do. And I think we do it fairly. We never pick anybody out to go after them. We never have targeted a coach or anyone in this organization. We've never had animosity off the side to go after anybody. I will say one thing, guys, and I always have, and maybe that's why I don't do mainstream broadcast anymore. I refuse to fucking lie to the fans. And I don't know if maybe other places in the city are in the business of it. I have a pretty good idea that people will do what they need to do to retain viewers, but that was never my thing. And I always felt like if fans were paying for their cable or paying for tickets to go to the game, they should be told the truth. And have somebody that understands the game telling them the truth. When your GM fucking lies to you all the time, the previous one, that's bullshit. That's total bullshit. And I wouldn't stand for it. But I tell you what, there's a lot of people that are on our sides now. They appreciate the character we've had, probably some of the balls to call out what happened with the last regime. And I'm happy that we're doing it. I love being over there. I love being at the building. It's like, in terms of my personality, when I walk in there, I feel giddy some nights, just being back in there. The team's looking good. There's a good work ethic. I'm working with you guys, and I get to see a lot of my old friends and teammates that were there. So it is a win-win, guys. We're never going to stop being who we are. I'm not. If the team stinks one night, we're going to call it. If they deserve a great pat on the back and an attaboy, we're going to give it to them too. If we see some of the stupid shit that we see, we're going to call it out. But if we see things that are worth celebrating, we're going to also talk about that. So yeah.
I will say this, and this is going to sound like pandering to them, but it's not. Ooh. They deserve credit, the organization, for letting us be who we are.
Yep.
Because they very easily could have tried to say, "Hey, we want you to do this," or come giving us one message, and then once we started, like Russ said, they could have put, "Well, hey guys, what do you think about saying it this way?" Or "Don't go be so hard on so and so," or blah blah blah. And they haven't. So that's why I think that it's important that people understand that they deserve credit for that, because they deserve credit for us being able to continue to be upfront and honest and criticize when necessary and praise when necessary. This does not happen in sports. Teams in pro sports like to control their narratives, and the Flyers are willing to not control their narrative with us to have people engaged, discussing and talking and being, interested in the team again. And that's outside the box thinking for professional sports. And it's like, I got to give them credit for that.
100%.
You know what I'd like, guys? I'll wrap this up. How long is it away from like an actual format like this of just like the Manning cast, before you get calls like this on a broadcast, before someone has the balls to finally say, fans like this, it's like sitting at a bar and you're talking about hockey, but you're watching the game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Everything just feels so powdered now. Is your makeup done? He's all, and make sure you get stretch out your jaw so your words come out properly.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I love a format like this, and I would gladly do it if someone ever gave it a chance. But I'll tell you what, it's down to earth. It's honest, and you're right, Anthony. You said it exactly right. The Flyers have never said one word. Just been really, really appreciative of our honesty. And I think looking back at what happened before, I think they were appreciative of our honesty during that regime too.
Yep. Hey, there was a super chat in here from Hunter Mikos that I think is probably worth us doing here before we wrap this thing up. But Hunter says, before you guys go, what is the biggest change you see, either see coming or want to see happen in the next calendar year? Biggest change you either see coming or want to see happen in the next calendar year. Also, thank you, Hunter, for the super chat.
Thanks, Hunter.
Yeah, thanks, Hunter. That's actually a really good question. It would be easy to sit here and just say, well, you're probably looking at Cutter Gauthier going to be part of the team, and like, how does he change the dynamic once he starts playing? That's probably the easiest answer, right? I mean, of what I expect to happen. But what would I like to see happen is a little bit different. I would actually like to see them parlay a goalie into something else to benefit the team. That's what I would like to see. Do I think it's going to happen? I'm not saying that. But if you're asking, so what do I think is the most interesting thing that's going to happen in the next calendar year? It's going to be Cutter Gauthier and how he impacts the team. What would I like to see? I think that you have enough goaltending depth within this organization right now that you can use that as something to bring in other assets in some capacity. And I'd like to see them do that in whatever capacity. I don't know. But that's what I would like to see. I'm not sure it's going to happen, though.
Interesting you say that, Anthony, and we'll just finish with this. But I wonder if that means that the goaltending gets an even play coming down the home stretch. So let's just, for the sake of the numbers, say there's 50 games left, right? And up until the deadline, there's 40. Mm-hmm. Does Torts somehow methodically find a way to play each guy 20 games to see if there's extended value for a guy like Ursan? Again, like I'm just spitballing that out there, but I'm thinking like you are. They got something there, and they have two number ones. And I'm telling you guys, in a league where there's some shitty fucking goaltending, I'm more excited about that one goaltender that they're going to move, because they could really turn that into assets. Like, if I'm a guy that can trade a good goalie now, I'm holding those cards and I'm making sure teams are bidding like crazy on them. Man, I don't know. That's what I would do, because again, I'm not saying this is not the year we're going to win the cup. So why not toy around with things a little bit? And if you've got to maybe just kind of have a look at a little bit more look, or give other teams more of a look at both guys. Someone say, oh, we can get Ursan, but we're going to have to give away one or two defensemen. That's how you get your one or two, perhaps off of another roster.
Yeah, look, and I think that might be something ultimately that happens in the offseason. If it would happen, I don't see it as a deadline thing, although teams will get more desperate at the deadline and maybe will give up more. But you're really not moving a number one defenseman in season, right? So that's kind of the thing. That's why I say I think it's more of an off-season type move. But I do think that, and it's not just Hart and Ursan, it's the fact that you have Kolosov coming next year, and you drafted two other kids that you think could become NHL caliber goalies. They have other goalies in the system who can potentially be NHL level backups, right? So there is enough of a cupboard full there that you could probably turn one of them into something that will get you assets that you need elsewhere. And that's what I would like to see. Whether they do it or not will remain to be seen. But I think that that's something that would make a lot of people excited in 2024.
I think I'll piggyback on you, Ant.
Yeah.
I think that what I'd like to see happen in the next calendar year is I would like for the Hockey Canada thing to be done for a lot of reasons. And I would like for them to be able to make a move that can help this team in their rebuild. And if, we've talked about this a bunch, but the 2024 draft continues to be something where you say there are 3 or 4 guys who are star quality players, not cornerstone, not franchise altering players. And so if that's the case, I wouldn't be opposed if they were able in 2024 to move a Carter Hart, whether that's at the deadline, if the Hockey Canada thing is all done, or if it's at the draft, wherever you're going to get the best value, and it's probably at the draft. I would rather see them make a move for a 2025 pick, if that is what is perceived to be the stronger draft. I'd like to see them get multiple picks, and I would like to see them get legitimate assets, because I will remind people, and this happens all the time, when you talk about a trade and you talk about getting picks, you don't have to use those picks. You can use those as part of a bigger move for a player that actually does help you. And if people go back and they listen to the interview that we did with Jonesy when we announced the partnership with the team, what was the one position he said was more important than anything? It wasn't a goalie. It was a number 1 defenseman. And if you think that it's going to be too hard to find a number 1 defenseman through the draft in the next couple of years, but you're able to take whatever you can get from trading a goalie and parlay that together with another pick or another asset, and you feel like, hey, this thing is actually much farther along than we thought, the kids are all playing well, the vets are contributing in a meaningful way, and you think that you can turn this thing in 2 years instead of 5 or 4, then I think you consider making that move. You go out and you get that number 1 defenseman through a trade, and you push the pedal to the metal. And that, I think, is what I would like to see happen next year. Because I think that as much as people like me have wanted to see them tear things down to the studs, it will not happen. And I'm starting to think that based on the way that some of these young guys have developed this year, and they've developed through winning, you might not have to. They might actually be better than we thought.
What? Wait. Say that again, Russ. Did you just say that basically without saying it? Did you happen to just say, "Yeah, Ant, you were right all along"?
No, because we are now multiple months into the season, and we have empirical data in front of us that shows that there's a chance that a lot of these guys are better than we thought.
You can rebuild faster than 5 to 7 years. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that right now the data is pointing us.
Are you Chuck Fletchering me? Are you Chuck Fletchering me right now, Russell?
You can.
Listen,
in this league.
All the Flyers need, okay, and I say this very carefully.
Trevor.
I say this very carefully. Anthony, this team is a potential cup contender if they're able to get Ryan Ellis back before the playoffs. And we believe that the Flyers are going to have Ryan Ellis back.
Here we go.
In the not too distant future. They're also going to
Can
from
you
word on
do
the
that?
street.
Instead of the Bundy bomb, can we get like a Russ gaslight?
Russ lighting.
Image Russ lighting that we could put
Russ
up,
lighting.
like a little Russ gaslight thing.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah.
No, but I don't know. I just think that there are so many things that you can do here. And if nothing else, we've talked about this a bunch. I do think that the team is better than we thought that they would be. There is still a lot of season in front of us. It is truly still possible that the wheels fall off. But as of right now, if nothing else, 2023 started as a dog shit gaslighting festival, and it now ends with this team looking like an actual hockey team, and one that people can actually kind of believe in, and that they're not wasting their money to go see. And that, guys, is quite the revelation here in 2023.
Brian, did you get that? Did you get that from Meltzer? Just wondering. And I want to know, did he unblock you yet?
Read it. Read the comment, because you always forget that people listen. Thousands of people listen to the podcast feed. It's not just the YouTube people who we love.
Brian Crail says, did you see one of the analytics accounts gave Morgan Frost a 95 overall score, which is higher than Couturier and slightly worse than Austin Matthews? I did not, but I'm less interested in the comment, more interested in if Brian Crail was ever unblocked by Bill Meltzer. That's what I want to know.
So if you attack Billy, you get blocked on Twitter?
Well, that guy
attack
did.
Morgan Frost.
I think that's what happened there.
Yeah. So I'm just curious if Brian was unblocked yet. We tried. We even brought it up to Meltzer when he was on the pregame show. No, he wasn't. He wasn't unblocked.
Oh, Brian, we gotta get in touch with Bill Meltzer.
I know Bill Meltzer's watching.
I'm sure he is. I'm sure Bill's the best.
Come on, unblock him, Bill.
Unblock him.
Brian, drop your Twitter handle below so that when Bill watches the show or listens to the show, we can read off or he can see your handle. Drop it in the comments below. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button. There are two things before we head out. And I think that we probably need to do this anyway because there was something that happened that was so good and so sensational, and it is still, after all, the holiday season, that for those who somehow might have missed it, I think that we need to take a moment to acknowledge the greatness that was the Intern Andrew poem, the holiday poem.
One more time.
And then we're going to come back here, and we're going to talk about a couple of other things. But in case you somehow missed this, please enjoy Intern Andrew with his holiday poem.
'Twas 4 nights before Christmas, and Wells Fargo was far from dead. The last home game in 2023, it's Flyers versus Preds. In walks Keith Jones and his partner, Danny Briere, in the hopes that in his costume, Intern Andrew would be there. And I was, unfortunately. They saw me in this. That was an all-time low moment. Now, Bundy said something yesterday that I feel I must repeat. He said he'd reimburse me for this costume, so here's your receipt. And it was not cheap.
Jesus.
Shout out to Bobby Brink, who has a new #1 fan. He remains the only player to have shaken Andrew's hand. That's true. None of the other players have done it when I went down there, so Bobby Brink's my new favorite player.
Love it.
On Konechny, on Sanheim, on Farabee, on Stahl. Shoot the puck, shoot the puck. We're on the power play, y'all. Because here we give our unbiased opinions, even on nights when the Flyers have lost. And unlike Bill Meltzer, we'll actually criticize Morgan Frost. Now that we've done 16 games together, I feel like I know you all. Russ apparently is trilingual, and Ant has to pee in the stall. Also, Snow The Goalie merch is still available online. It's not like Russ has brought that up on the screen 4 billion times. Shut up, snowthegoalie.com. See, that was a seamless plug right there, Russ.
This is great. It's fantastic.
Now, before I go, there are other people who I think deserve some hands. Shout out to our loyal listeners, commenters, and fans. Folks like Andrew Fawcett and my buddies Ryan and Brendan. Matthew Bennick, Eric Berkey, and my dear sister Kaylin. That actually didn't rhyme. I just had to get them all in, so they're not mad at me. Thanks to all the listeners, down to every girl and boy, and even our behind-the-scenes co-hosts, my mom and Nancy Joy.
Dude, this is amazing.
I know this has been very corny, so please don't rip me. I'm just trying to make this the best podcast on both sides of the Mississippi. So I hope your holiday season is void of all of life's dangers. Merry Christmas to all, except for the Capitals, Penguins, and Rangers.
I'm still laughing at that. It was so
good.
Fantastic. That really was great.
Good.
Like he did such a good job. And that was truly next level. Great job. Great job to Intern Andrew.
We gotta pay. I gotta pay him, Russ. But we're gonna.
All right, we'll figure that out. We're gonna figure that one out. Yep, we're gonna.
Where do you buy that thing? Where do you get that thing? At Buckingham Palace?
The best part is that the best part is that he bought both.
Yeah,
he bought 2 costumes. Incredible.
Yeah, he
it was
likes
incredible
it.
stuff.
I can't wait till we get him in the pink bunny outfit for Easter.
Did you like that suggestion? I said he has to go Cupid for Valentine's Day, the leprechaun for St. Patrick's Day, and the bunny for Easter.
We'll get him in that Christmas Story pink bunny outfit there.
Oh, so good.
Boy.
So good. Anyway.
So there was that. We'd encourage people, obviously. There's shop.snowthegoalie.com for your merch. And then if you look up above us, we've talked about this a couple of times, but for those who might have missed it, we are doing a combo trip March 7th to the 10th, Philly Sports Trips. You can go to phillysportstrips.com/trips/snowthegoalie. That link is also in the description of this episode on YouTube and Facebook and in the podcast feed. But we are going to be doing a 2-part trip. We're going to head down to Florida, down to sunny Clearwater, where we're going to watch a Phillies-Astros spring training game on a Friday. And then on that Saturday, John Tortorella is going to be recognized as part of the 20-year anniversary of the Stanley Cup winning team down in Tampa. So we'll be doing that game on a Saturday. So if you've ever wanted to get down to Florida to go see spring training or to see a Flyers game or both, or you've ever wondered what it felt like to go put your tootsies in the ocean and then go to a hockey game mere minutes or hours later. You'll have the chance to do that with the Snow the Goalie crew. It'll be all three of us. We're going to go down there and have a wonderful time. We're going to have a meet and greet party, big old get together. Might have some guests at that meet and greet. We'll have some information about that at some point here in the not too distant future. But if you head over to phillysportstrips.com, you can find it in their upcoming events, or you can go to the specific URL, phillysportstrips.com/trips/snowthegoalie. And be honest, how excited do you feel?
I'm great. Brian Krail's already said he's going to be there. Ryan Ingrick is talking about making the trip from Finland. That would be fantastic. They would love to bring Ryan Ingrick in from Finland. So that'd be really cool. That's going to be great. It's going to be a good time. It's going to be, we're going to have a lot of fun down there. It's a great town to hang out and have a good time. We're also going to do with our friends from Philly Nation, Flyers Nation. I always get to we got baseball on the brain now. But Flyers Nation, they're doing a trip up to the outdoor game in Jersey. We're going to make an appearance at that as well. So they have a thing with Philly Sports Trips as well. You can also, if you want to buy tickets to that game through that, be part of the tailgate, hang out with us before the game. We'll be there for that as well. So that's on February 18th, of course. So also, when you go to the phillysportstrips.com /trips/Snow the Goalie, if you just look at the rest of the trips on that list, you'll be able to find the other trip up to New Jersey, and we'll be part of that as well. So be sure to check that one out as well.
So we have that trip. We have the outdoor game that we're going to attend and do some stuff at that other tailgate. I think we have another live event or two that we're still trying to work on. Plus, we have the Snow the Goalie. We have the Snow the Goalie tailgate that we're going to do at some point. We're going to do that. It'll be after the Flyers Wives Carnival. So it'll be after the Flyers Charities Carnival. Whatever the name is.
I will say out loud, because I've in conversation with the Flyers, the goal is March 30th against Chicago. That's the goal for the Snow the Goalie tailgate. It's not 100% locked in yet, but that's the date we are targeting to try and get it locked up.
But we'll do a really big tailgate. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and then we'll probably figure out. I would assume we're gonna figure out seats that are up in that Revolutionary Row, up where we do the press row show. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll figure that part out.
There are a lot of moving parts to this, but we thankfully do have some time. If it does end up being that March 30th, though, do have to kind of point out that that would be the game that Intern Andrew would have to dress up like the Easter Bunny.
Yes. Yeah. He could have him flipping burgers in an Easter Bunny suit.
We could have Intern Andrew walking around with a nice big Easter basket, handing out eggs to the people.
Yeah.
Bundy flipping burgers, but Intern Andrew hopping down the bunny trail outside of Wells Fargo Center with some eggs, some chocolate. It'd be great. Gonna be great.
That's great.
So,
all right, well, have a great day, Russ.
Yeah,
yes.
It's time for us to go.
But you can get up and walk off, just like you do at the press row show.
It's more formal here today. I love everybody, and we'll have a great week. We'll see you in a couple days. What do we got actually planned? We got a morning after? We got a morning
Bundy, you and I think you and I have to come up with this because Ant's about to go under the knife.
Yeah,
you and I are going to figure out.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll put out on social if we're going to do a morning after, because there are two games later this week.
I think we do one for both games, because I actually have to be. That would be Saturday, right, Russ?
I believe so. We'll have to look at it. We'll look at it and we'll decide. We'll put it out on social media. So, anyway, this hopefully has kind of scratched the itch for the people who've been missing the regular Snow the Goalie show, as we've kind of mixed in a lot of press row shows and morning after recaps. Hopefully this did it for you. I would like to remind people that you can, of course, go on to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review, because we did receive one from Canada in the last week. What are you laughing at? What's so funny? What's so funny, Giggly Bits?
You don't see a comment on the screen?
No, because I'm trying to pull up the review. What?
Why is Intern Andrew? Why is my whole thing just dressing as mythical creatures?
Who said they're mythical? Let's start there.
Jesus.
Love it. Oh, look at Patrick checking in from Sweden, I'm assuming. Really great getting to watch some Snow the Goalie.
Great.
There you go.
Good stuff.
Well, I was looking for the thing, but I don't want to keep Bundy. I know Bundy wants to.
We've been at this an hour and 45 minutes. Russ, if it was up to you, we would never leave the screen. We would be live streaming 24/7 if it was your call.
Some people seriously do that. I mean, I'm just saying. All right, here, I've had it.
This 5-star review comes from...
This is it.
What? Wait, stop it before you read the review. I don't want to lose this thing because Allison, who's a great listener, has such a brilliant idea. A Snow the Goalie calendar with Andrew in costumes.
That's awesome. Let's do that.
That's happening.
Oh boy.
And we will put it up.
No, I don't know about that. Man, I don't know how I feel about that.
I just think it would be so great.
Dave says next he'll be told to dress as Harry Potter. That could be for the October, for the Halloween.
I was
page.
actually, I was thinking of March.
Oh boy. Good intern, Andrew.
We're
All
doing
right, five star review. BBBBBBB 6969. 5 stars, part of my weekly routine. Love listening to the show a few times a week. Decades removed from Philly, but this show keeps me close to my favorite team. Love Bundy's stories from his playing days. So a big thank you to BBBBBB 6969.
I think
for that
there was
5-star review.
I think there was one other one that goes back a little bit that we never actually read.
Really?
Yeah, from Marcial 525 about post game and morning after.
I don't see that, but I do see Cozy 1972, who says 5 stars, simply the best Flyers podcast this side of the Tim. All right, the Tim River.
Oh, Nice.
Hey guys, I discovered your pod in the fateful final months of the GM who shall remain nameless. I've been hooked ever since. Russ's effervescent enthusiasm, Ant's journalistic perspective, and Bundy's player-only insight, and Bundy bombs make it the only pod that's an open, honest, and transparent view on Philly hockey. Great work, boys, and a massive thank you from the UK.
That's awesome. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And to
Isn't that
answer,
great?
Ryan's asking where can I do a 5-star review if you have Apple Podcasts. That's where the 5-star reviews are. So if you have Apple Podcasts, that's where you do it. And Rob's asking the same question. So yeah, you could do it there. And Russ, can they do it somewhere else as well?
On Spotify, you can leave a 5-star rating. You can't actually write a review, but you can leave a 5-star rating. So if you go to the show page, just below it, you'll see a star rating. You can click there, and then you can leave 5 stars there. And that's yet another way that you can do that. Yeah. I don't know which one you were talking about, Ant.
Marcial 525 post. It's. I'll read it. I got it right here in front of me. Talking about post game and morning after shows. It says, I love the post game and morning after shows and look forward to listening after each game. Win or lose, your content is always entertaining and informative. Keep up the good work. So
thank you,
Marcial. Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
very nice.
That was great. Very nice.
All right, so anyway, we got a bunch of 5-star reviews. Those will warm the cockles of Anthony's heart. Bundy is sitting closer to the camera, which means it might be time.
He's
For the morning constitution. I think somebody might have to. Well, you know, there he goes. A big thank you to everybody who checked in on the live stream. Big thank you to everybody who listens after the fact in the podcast feed. 2023 has been a great year. Bundy and I will probably be back one more time before the calendar flips to 2024 to do a morning after show. But on the off chance that we're not, or for Anthony who's about to go under the knife, a big thank you to everybody who listens to the show,
Anthony.
who watches the show.
Russ, here's real quick. Answer this question for this poor guy. Nathan's asking. He says, "I use Google Podcasts, but it's being shut down. Any Android recommendations to listen outside of Spotify?"
I used to use an app called TriCast, or no, it wasn't TriCast. It was. I know people use Overcast. I don't know if that's on Android. When I had an Android phone, I used Spotify. That was like my number one. We are on Pandora. We are on. Stitcher is dead. It's Pandora. I think Pandora is probably the only other one that
Amazon.
There are third party apps that you can
Amazon.
Yeah, but you have to have
Music, right?
Prime. You have to have Prime to listen to through the Amazon Music app. But you can there are plenty of third party apps that you can go through and give it a listen. I can't remember the name of the app right off the top of my head, but anyway, we can't do this show without all of you, without your support. It's been awesome. I think the number one thing, guys, that has been really great is when we go down and we do Press Row Show. And we have people who come up and they come to chat with us and they come to watch the game with us and they say really great things. And sometimes people are show up in their Snow the Goalie merch. We had that one guy who came up the other day. He was wearing the Snow the Goalie polo shirt. When we have people who come up and
He came from Tennessee.
Yeah. When we have people who come up and talk to us, we've had, wasn't it Andrew who came up from Texas, right?
Yeah.
We've had people who have come from all over who come up and say such great things and such nice things. And it really does mean a lot because we do this for the people out there. Sure, we all have our own version of an ego. Anthony's is bigger than everyone else's. No, just kidding.
Yep.
But It's a big thank you, and like it really does mean a lot to us that so many people have such nice things to say, and we hope that we will find our way to even more Flyers fans in 2024. Guys, I'll say this: I'm grateful for both of you.
Thanks, pal.
Really thrilled with the year that we've had together, and honestly, it's one of the things that I'm most proud of in this life, other than like my marriage and my kids. I think what we've done here is something truly that we should all be very proud of. And again, really thankful to all the people who listen.
Co-host Nancy Joy, 4 children, Snow the Goalie.
That's right.
That's about right.
Yeah, just making sure.
Boys, we'll catch up in a couple days.
Yep.
All right. And with that, we're going to roll out. Everybody have a great day. We will talk to you very, very soon.